All right, thank you very much, Ayanda. I must say it has been a bit of a challenging morning because we've been wanting to come to you live, and finally we are coming to you live, as opposed to having to feed some of the interviews to you. But I think it's a good time to be coming live because we're now in the ballroom at the Chinese embassy, and this is where the function was held. The function has now ended, and it's been quite a rich function that's been, I suppose, sharing the cultures of China with all of the ambassadors that have gathered here. And this is nice to see because we've got some of our high-flying ambassadors that have remained behind, and I'm going to have a quick chat with all of them here that's still here. So let me go one by one. I'm going to go around the table and just chat to them. So the first ambassador I'm talking to is Ambassador Lange. Now, he is in Beijing. Ambassador, good to have you. Welcome home, I should say. When did you get into South Africa?
Thank you very much. I came to South Africa last week to participate in the Heads of Missions Conference, which is currently taking place here in Pretoria. And today we came to the Chinese embassy, and China is a very important development partner for South Africa. And so it is quite fitting that during this conference we find an opportunity to come here, yes, to the Embassy of the People's Republic of China.
Yeah. Most definitely, and it's quite an exciting year for China and South Africa because China has been chosen and South Africa has been chosen by China that these two countries would promote each other this year. So I suppose your hands are quite full this year, quite busy.
Yes, this is an auspicious year for China-South Africa relations. 2014 was jointly declared by President Jacob Zuma and President Xi Jinping as the South Africa year in China. That was jointly declared during President Xi Jinping's historic visit to South Africa in March last year. And next year will be China year in South Africa. This year we have had a number of activities all over China to promote South Africa. The South Africa year in China also coincides with our 20-year celebration of freedom in South Africa. We have had cultural activities, visits to academic institutions, we've given lectures, we've had exhibitions, we've had cultural groups from South Africa coming to China. And this year we are quite excited that our President Jacob Zuma is planning to come to the People's Republic of China to close formally the celebrations for the South Africa year in China.
Fantastic. What's it like living in Beijing? You enjoying it? How long have you been there, firstly?
I've been 3.5 years now in Beijing. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. Beijing is one of the best places to be in the world. The Chinese people are very welcoming, and it's a very safe environment, and we feel very, very welcome. So I feel very honored as an ambassador to serve in this great country.
Fantastic. I can imagine. Well, it's good to have you here, and good luck for these next 2 years because they are quite difficult. Now, this is a face you recognize, and maybe some of you have been wondering where he's been. Well, he's still been very, very busy, but you have been in Washington. I'm talking to Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool. It's so nice to see you again. It's been such a long time.
No, thank you very much, Leanne. It's great to be back in South Africa and great to see you again and to be on TV.
Yeah, indeed, I know, as opposed to our old hangout in the Western Cape there. Now, listen, this has been a big moment for South Africa, or we could actually just pull it to the continent, Africa and US relations, a really historic meeting of heads in the US. What was it like to be there over that time?
I think it was one of the most exciting periods in the history of Africa and the United States. I think that at the very least, what has happened is that the United States has recognized that Africa is an important destination for trade investment. It's a source of growth. The rates of return on investment are quite high. The future of food security in the world depends on Africa. And that 50% of the world's population under the age of 35 will soon be in Africa. And if we don't harness that as a resource, that we face trouble. So I think that it's an affirmation of Africa and that its time has come. And I think that we need to ensure that the outcomes of the summit match the intent that went into it.
Yeah. When I was speaking to the minister, she said this was really just an introduction, particularly for South Africa and the United States, this meeting. And so much more needs to be done and will be done. And she sounded very optimistic for the relations between the two countries.
Now, look, I think that there is basis for optimism. It's really, even if we do the minimum of what was decided there, then I think that what we will have is that rather than militaristic interventions from the United States in Africa, we could have an African standby force that solves its own problems. Rather than, for example, simply having 6 Power Africa projects, we could have the emergence of great schemes like the Grand Inga to provide Africa with its baseload energy to kickstart its industrial revolution. I think we can start off with 500 young African leaders, but we must end up with a human resource development program for the 50% of young people. And I think most certainly, if we do nothing else in trade but reauthorize the African Growth and Opportunities Act, that by itself for the next 10, 15 years would be enormous. So I think that there's a concreteness that underpins, I think, the really important signal that comes out of the summit.
Abraham Rasool, thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you very, very much for talking to us here this morning. Now, another exciting job, I imagine. I've got Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo, and you are our UN representative. And I mean, sitting in the United Nations, listening to all of the stories that are happening in the United Nations and issues regarding the world, this must be one of the most exciting places to be.
Well, it is. But first, let me say, Leanne, for me, very exciting to be participating in this event because we collaborate with the Chinese in many ways to develop our own relations, but also internationally. And internationally within BRICS, there's a lot of things we're dealing with within that forum. Because indeed, next year will be a very important year for us at the United Nations. It will be the 70th anniversary of the United Nations. We will also be marking 15 years target date since the development of the MDGs. So next year we'll actually be working on an agenda post-2015 development agenda. And so we need the Chinese, we need other people to begin to work on this international policy framework architecture, which would ensure that as developing countries, we are able to defend the position of the poor. We are able to ensure that the poor and the developing are not disadvantaged in this kind of relationship. And so for me, I think appropriate to be participating in this platform today, the launch of BRICS book publication, which has been launched by our minister.
Yeah, that's something we need to. I know that the Deputy Ambassador for China did talk about it, the BRICS Africa 1 year of South Africa heading up BRICS, and that was quite an occasion for us. But let's go back to the UN and particularly the Millennium Development Goals, and that's something that we watch very, very closely, and we determine a lot of our policies here in South Africa around them. How are we looking from an outside opinion, from the United Nations perspective?
Well, we look good. Let me first say that the MDGs, which were initially put in place in 2000, worked a lot in mobilizing the developing countries to do something about issues such as poverty, eradication and so on, education, health and many other issues. Of course, we've not been successful. We can't say we have been able to achieve all those. But the mere announcement of an intent to do something about the declaration did something to galvanize the poor. And so what we are saying as South Africa and Africa and the developing world is, what do we do now to complete the unfinished business? You don't say because you were not able to achieve some of those objectives, you abandon them. What do we do about education? What do we do about health? And so this 2015 development agenda is all about that. It's all about, first, let's ensure that we deal with the unfinished business and then add other issues that may not have been part of the MDGs. There were only 8 of them. Yeah. But now you have quite a lot of them, industrialization, energy, and so forth, that are coming up. And so there has been negotiations that have been going on. in preparations, let me say, for the real negotiations that are going to begin now with UNGA 69. So in September, when our president comes there, we'll actually be beginning the real negotiations. So 2015 would be very important year for the developing and for the poor. But I think the comforting thing is that you have the president of the General Assembly being African, the foreign minister of Uganda, who will take his leadership role at that time.
So that'll give us as a continent.
As the continent.
Ambassador, thank you for talking to us. I've got to move around quickly because we are running out of time, but I really want to try and get an opportunity to speak to everybody. Ambassador Nkosi from the EU over there. Well, how did I get you? Okay, I've got Ambassador Mphahlwa. I beg your pardon. I've jumped the gun. I've got to get to that side of the table just now. You of course, are in Russia. And, I mean, that is also one of our BRICS countries and one of the most incredible countries, I imagine, to be a part of.
Yes, thank you very much, Leanne. And I have to use this opportunity to say good morning to South Africans, yes, which is something I don't have a lot of opportunities to do. And it is a pleasure for me to be participating in this event as well. And being in Russia, this is my 4th year in the Russian Federation. It's been an amazing experience. It's a country that is very meaningful to South Africa because a very big chunk of our history of struggle has always been associated with that country. Yeah. And we've had an opportunity to really focus on translating that long history into a real relationship in trade terms, in investment terms, institutional linkages, intergovernmental cooperation, people-to-people exchanges. I mean, tourism is one of our big areas of focus. And we have really seen the relationship starting to take off on a new basis, which is really state to state, government to government, people to people, business to business. We've started to even have South African young people studying, yeah, taking up study opportunities in the Russian Federation. Yeah. So really it's been an amazing 4 years in terms of just building the relationship.
Is St. Petersburg as beautiful as everybody says it is?
It actually is quite, so. It is actually quite a striking city. Yeah. Our ambassador in the People's Republic of China presently, yes, was my immediate predecessor. Oh, wow. He can confirm what I'm telling you. St. Petersburg, I would really encourage South Africans, yeah, to consider Russia as a tourist destination, and when you are there, certainly St. Petersburg would be a place to go and visit.
It's on my bucket list. I've got to get down there and I'll come have a cup of tea at the embassy, okay? You better just stay there for another 2 years or so.
Well, talk to my employer.
I'll talk to your boss. I'll make sure we get you there. Okay, I'm running around the table. I feel like I'm on like Skatayach or something. Remember that program where you had to run around the shopping center? No, I'm doing this quickly. So I'm going to introduce both of you. Now, an envy. You've got an envious job. Very enviable. Ruby Marks, who is from Thailand, the ambassador in Thailand. And then, of course, I introduced our ambassador from the EU, Ambassador Polisi. So it's so nice to have both of you. Let's do this quickly. I say enviable because we talk about tourism, and Thailand has to be, I mean, South Africans and Thailand, we have a love affair with that country.
Absolutely, and it's justified.
Yes.
But because we're running out of time, let me just make a very, very short appeal. Good. You know, Thailand is a very popular tourist destination for South Africans. We have about 80,000, going to Thailand. Can I make a special appeal that our travelers, our tourists to Thailand, please register, with Rosa, our program that is hosted by DIRCO. It's so important because anything can go wrong, when you travel. And we can provide non-financial assistance if there's a problem. And we know, of course, that Thailand has just gone through difficulties, And in this particular moment, it was so important for us to know where our people are. So just a very special appeal to all of the viewers. Yeah. Do visit Thailand. It's safe to come, but register with Rosa that you can access through the DIRCO website.
That's good to know. Thank you for that bit of advice. I never did that when I visited, but it's a good tip and advice for travelers out there. And finally, but definitely not least, probably right up there, representing South Africa for the EU. Now, that is a big responsibility, Ambassador. What is it like for you?
Well, I've been over 2.5 years now in Brussels. As you know, I'm accredited to the EU and to Belgium and Luxembourg. Well, we try to spread our effort proportionally across those 3 areas of diplomatic engagement. Of course, the EU constitutes the widest and the biggest spectrum of our relations. And as you know, the EU is the main trading partner for South Africa. 21% of our imports, 21% of our exports go to the EU, and 29% of our imports come from the EU, are sourced from the EU. And the EU is a major contributor to foreign direct investment in South Africa. Over 77% of total FDI comes from the EU. And of course, the EU over the last 8 years has contributed over 53,000 jobs in South Africa. So it's quite significant from the perspective of the economy, from the perspective of cooperation and development.
Ambassador, I have to leave it there. But thank you so much for talking to us. In fact, thank you to each and every one of you for being here and for the sterling work that you're doing in representing South Africa abroad and our reputation and business and tourism, you name it. And these are the faces of our country if you do go overseas. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us here on Morning Live. I know I have to quickly hand back to the Johannesburg studio, and Valen is standing by. Shup from all of us here. Bye-bye.